Yes, in short, it's a dualistic case. There are dual points of discussion duo points of discussion concerning knowing him by way of the type of people that killed him and by way of how he was himself. I submit that because he was conquered, his people were conquered, the Jews were conquered by Herod's kingdom in league with the Roman Empire. They were unsorted, and so Jesus taught this poetic, metaphoric story of the Son of Man in the hopes to organize and inspire his fellow conquered people. Now, because there's no word from King Herod's queen, we may have it that what the scribes were writing was getting filtered through the, albeit an inbred brain criticizer, someone who already approves of the book of Genesis. I suggest Jesus did not. I suggest he was adverse to it, as any group of people would be adverse to the ideals of an organization that had you conquered as a group. So that his Son of Man metaphor was like a dejection from Adam and Eve. Plus you also have him stealing a horse, or it said his worst offense was the theft of a horse or colt or donkey, something like that. Now that violates Proposition 4 of the Mosaic 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's ox, nor ass, nor manservant, nor maidservant, nor wife, nor anything else that is thy neighbor's. It's an offensive commandment because women are listed as property. But so Jesus wanting to rebel against that by just freely riding a horse. So I suggest he was, in his humanity, Richard Dawkins said, if Jesus were alive today, I think he'd be an atheist. And people have thought that that's a stretch of a case for Professor Dawkins to make, but when you consider that the oldest book about Jesus is Mark's Gospel, and you isolatively study the text and testimony throughout Mark's Gospel, though there are elements of supernatural themes, they are nowhere near as intense as to constitute a God-bothering political mass movement against King Herod's kingdom. That King Herod conceals his queen from any and all mention might have meant that the queen had said, let's insult him by saying that the woman he loved was a whore. That's completely allowed to be a hypothetical possibility, and scholars have already written on the subject of Mary Magdalene possibly being Jesus' wife and also assisting him in leadership. But what you have to remember is, as a group that were conquered by Herod's kingdom and their ties to the Roman Empire, they were already below the rank of a kingdom serf. So they were already an enslaved group of people, and there was no way to talk to them but to mock them if you were connected to the Roman Empire and the kingdom of King Herod. So though there was no way to talk to them that wasn't a mock, if you were going to issue a formal charge to execute one of them, you wouldn't impose monarch standards on them. You wouldn't say, are you the king of the Jews? Because you know them to be beneath an entire kingdom. So I account for that variant, in that the accoster who was to accuse him was a bit starstruck. which is to say, got close to it, like like what a girl I used to date would call a fraudulent slip, which she would then laugh at herself because that too was a Freudian slip. So she would send herself into a little circular laughter loop there that was always very cute. He made a fraudulent slip. And I'm suggesting that, yeah, so he would have observed that despite them being a conquered people, Jesus had been working to keep the Jews organized. He'd been wisening and humbling them. He had been a leadership figure, but he wasn't operating in any kind of way that resembled the kingdom. So the only mock that they could think of, and now it'll come out of them fucking themselves, because they're the ones admitting to inbreeding. They're the ones admitting that it's blood. It's the only way to keep blood pure. Inbreed, inbreed, inbreed. They come up to him saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" So the fact that he's the ultimate target, a bilateral mind, bisexual heart, is the ultimate target to both target for destruction, to kill, and then to romanticize the killing afterwards by ceremony, by trophies of crosses on everyone's walls. Bill Hicks has asked the question, and I've asked the question, do you think when Jesus returns he wants to see another fucking cross? You really have rolled out the red carpet for him, haven't you? So it can be inferred by knowing that this is the target for an inbred thinker, and then it can be deduced from what's stated about him personally, and what it said has said, how the fact that he's forcefully handled without having made a confession to his accuser in Mark's gospel is just like how psychiatrists will move in on bisexuals now and say, well, we're going to force this substance on you whether you consent to it or not. And why they do that on a religious level, and see, they can't quite say, well, you're on the Mental Health Act, not the Human Rights Act, or else they're to deny that they're to say your nation is denying that you're human. And yet you have the right to health as part of your human rights, and then that subdivides into the Mental Health Act where appropriate. I think the mental health services that are there should be there, but they should be accessible upon request of the person. For who is it you're dealing with if you're having to hostage everyone and that goes there and force them there against their will? Who is it you're even treating? You're treating a person against their consent. And people are going to love that in terms of drug distribution if they're invested in the rebate value of certain antipsychotic medicines. But other than that, the moral people are not going to love it at all. It's this issue of wanting control over when a person leaves and under what circumstances they may leave, that they want to make sure that no one can voluntarily admit themselves. And it's a repetition of a well-known study that was done where 2 or 3 students with masters or bachelor degrees in psychiatry went and admitted themselves to psych wards for a study exercise, and they each copped about 6 or 7 different diagnoses each before saying to the overall manager, look, by the way, we're graduate studies, here's our grades. We were just assessing your hospital for wanting to push medicines and push diagnoses. So that goes on to. I'm forced to say that it's been as a result of, like, when I act and when I did my tribute to Heath Ledger bit, for instance, that was me acting, and I have a lot of self-discipline. I was beaten up a bit as a kid, and it feels fake to me to say things like ouch. I would rather sing a song if I'm in pain, or write a book, part of a book. I don't really have a simple way to say ouch, ooh. It feels too fake for me, because there were too few moments and too many moments where pain was being imposed on me and I was being told, isn't this awesome, isn't this awesome? And as a result of that, you can get stunted with saying ouch. And then once past a certain age, you say ouch, and it's like you feel like you're sending out a fake alert. But yeah, that can happen, especially from contending with those who think that the conflict between my parents is like is my bread and butter and balls. See, the fact of psychology is that, for me for the violent conflict between my parents to have happened, I would have to be sexually, now that I've passed puberty, I'm 37 years old, I would have to have a sexual attraction to, if to one of my own parents, it would be in a state of aggression towards the other, because one violently conflicted with the other, and then they separated, or sexually attracted to both. And I'm not sexually attracted to either of my parents. So it's the converse is that in order for me to feel love in life and to love life, I'm opposed to the conflict that they had, and I avoid conflict in general wherever possible. And I think of conflict resolution, and that's what my challenge to myself was years ago. Is there a way that I can take elements of unbelief, doubt, and cross it with faith in a way that helps an underdog demographic? Because the one thing that came out of working at Hughes Chemist, despite all the free drugs I was being given, was that it was there that I read about the health statistics of the bisexual community. And it will say tons of nervous breakdowns, death, known to die in 30s, during age 30s. And I thought it would be incredible to work in art in a way that reinforces this movement, so that, and I've worked out that it doesn't have to come at the expense of destroying appreciation for Jesus. It just means that we come out of the Bronze Age a little more fully. We can remember it from the mint with our coins. We can remember bronze, but I think Bronze, Iron Age, and Middle Age interpretations of trees as sentient beings. We now know more, and we now can do better, and so that's where I think we are. No, I think in addition to what Dawkins said, if Jesus were alive today, he'd be an atheist and he'd be a rock star. And he'd have a band called Son of Man. And yeah, and that's sort of how I think it would be. But Thank you. So, the other point I want to make is there can be people who are like satanic and they wear fuck Jesus shirts and stuff like that. What Friedrich Nietzsche did was he wrote the Antichrist, and that had a full blown attack on the Christ. But what that includes, and as Marilyn Manson developed developed the concept and became Antichrist superstar, people have thought a mix of things when they've seen him go on to cover Personal Jesus. And what I think he encountered was the same thing as Christopher Hitchens, which is where a pact with the faithful becomes not even an alluring prospect, but something that you might attempt to see what can be achieved. And as soon as you do, the faith will just start to dogmatize you and put you back through an even worse version of the same loop and circuit of questions and faith-based jargon. What I say though with Jesus is that so it's about having accurate comprehension. Because asking the question, do you believe in, entails things like, it can assume of you, do you place your trust in? Do you like in the affirmative, in favor? Are you prepared to share with others and spread around? It can include a lot of things to say, do you believe in? Whereas, like, do you comprehend? That separates your tastes from the text. So I can say I comprehend the text, but it does not suit my tastes. It doesn't suit my likes nor my dislikes, the way that this story is worded. So that's why, like, if you can hate on the Jesus story, and you can love the Jesus story, and you're going to be a biphobe both ways, because if once it's been suggested to you that Jesus was one, if you go, oh, I hate him, he's a walking on water fuckwit, you're going to go, hang on, it's more probable that he was a bisexual in the first century than that he walked on water. So whatever you hated him for, hated about him, is something that he probably wasn't, while ignoring what he probably was. And so you've got comprehension, and then you've got, do I place trust in these texts? Well, no. I place more trust in the Jesus seminar for having accurate dating methodology. In academia, there are brilliant people who spend their uni degrees studying the New Testament. They do really well. And their model on the dating range is I think the most superior that we've ever seen. It makes perfect sense of a kingdom wrongfully executing someone and then covering it up with concepts we know were plagiarized from pagan Rome. And what have the Christians got to say to these plagiarisms? That the devil stole the DeLorean off Doc Brown, travelled back in time and planted Apollonius of Tyana, Dionysus of Greece, Krishna of India, Mithra of Persia, or all these other divinities, so that they could perform the same miracles as Jesus just prior to Jesus' birth, in order to sabotage the impressiveness of the miracles Jesus himself would perform during his time. And so that's what the Christians have to say. Well, the devil did it. And I find that to be a pathetic. You could use that excuse now to any problem in the Bible. How do you explain the incest in the Bible? Oh, the devil did it.